The Long March politically really began, however, not simply with the breakout of the Red Army, but with a conference at the town of Tsuni in Guizhou province. There, in January of 1935, the retreating communist leadership regrouped and named Mao Zedong its chairman, in good part because of the utter failure of the communist leadership after its arrival in Jiangxi. This was a real turning point, because the party was now controlled not by a man who automatically towed the Comintern line, but by a man with his own ideas. During the Long March, Mao Zedong would further consolidate his leadership of the party, which would, during this period, be almost completely out of touch with Moscow. The Long March bore the mark of defeat. It was, after all, a prolonged retreat after an enormous disaster. But it also bore with it some of the seeds of future success. For the party, its army, and the leadership would survive, and it would survive in a way that would give it some strength for the future. Apart from the central fact of survival versus overwhelming odds, and against constant Kuomintang pursuit and harassment, perhaps the most important legacy of the Long March was psychological. For Mao, at least, the experience reinforced his view that they could mold historical reality to accord with their own ideas and ideals. Survival on the Long March reinforced what has been called the voluntarist strain of Mao's own thought, and the idea that his mission could succeed against all odds, overcoming all material obstacles. In a basic sense, this is Marxist, for one of Marx's early ideas was that men make the world in which they live and control their own destiny. But it clearly wasn't Marxist in the sense that Marx felt that the material world that men had created, particularly the economic world, largely determined what was possible in any given time. For the realization of socialism, Marx and his later Soviet followers had seen an era of capitalist industrialization as a precondition for socialism. Only through the creation of new forms of production and the establishment of a proletariat and of a revolutionary class located in the proletariat could socialism succeed. But for Mao Zedong, the peasantry could be the revolutionary class of China, one which could be used to leapfrog over a capitalist era directly into socialism. This was the greatest point of ideological divergence between Mao and the Soviet Union, and what made Mao truly either original or heretical, depending on your point of view. If nothing else, the Long March was some form of evidence for its survivors that people could prevail even in the most desperate circumstances. It instilled in its survivors values of unending struggle, sacrifice, self-denial, diligence, courage, and unselfishness, elements that came to be seen as necessary for the survival of the revolution thereafter. And at the end of the Long March, at a new mountain base established outside of the range of Chiang Kai-shek's guns, this ethos became known as the Yan'an spirit. Mao was convinced that people properly motivated could accomplish anything, irrespective of material obstacles. This was a view that he would carry into his rulership of the People's Republic, and is perhaps most tragically evident in his unleashing of the Great Leap Forward in 1958 that would end with the deaths of between 30 and 50 million Chinese. To give you a sense of his point of view, let me read to you what he said to his comrades at the time of the Great Leap Forward. "There are so many things to study," he said. "How shall we go about it? Just keeping on in the same way, learning a bit, penetrating a bit deeper. Let me give you an example of what I have learned. In 1954, there was an indoor swimming pool at Tsinghua University. I went there every evening with my bag, changed my clothes, and for 3 months without interruption, I studied the nature of the water. Water doesn't drown people. Water is afraid of people. People aren't afraid of water. Of course, there are exceptions, but it should be possible to swim in all kinds of water. This is a major premise. For example, the Yangtze at Wuhan is water, so it's possible to swim in the Yangtze at Wuhan. So I refuted those comrades who opposed my swimming in the Yangtze. I said, you haven't studied formal logic. If it's water, you can swim in it. This is the major premise derived from practice. Thus, for example, the Yangtze at Wuhan is water. Hence, the conclusion follows that it is possible to swim in the Yangtze at Wuhan. Wherever there's water, you should be able to swim. This is the major premise. Apart from the fact that you can't swim in 1 inch of water, you can't swim in water that's at a temperature of over 100 degrees, or in water that is so cold that it's frozen, or where there are sharks or whirlpools. Apart from these circumstances, all water can be swum in. This is a fact. Do you believe it? If you are resolute, if you only have the will, I am convinced that all things can be successfully accomplished. I exhort you, comrades, to study.